Hi, this is Duchess Robinson from 8 by 10 Design, DuchessPro.com, AritaRobinson.com, and a host of other online businesses that I host and created. So let's get directly into it. Excuse me, I am dealing with a head cold, but I wanted to get this information out directly. So it is still 2025 and we're going into 2026 and dealing with web development and some other things, specifically with the websites I build and some documents that I'm writing up for grant work. It's a culmination of things that are triggered by technologies that have been introduced to us in the past few years. The overwhelming utilization of chat GPTs and other LLMs is what's now flipping the online business on its head. Similar to when we started out with the internet in the mid 90s. We found new ways and added new complex and community oriented online things, similar to when we were introduced to social media at the core level of its platform. I remember in the 90s, late 90s, going into the early 2000s, I was on a platform like Black Planet. And it was just generally a platform where people chat rooms and got on their computer and had conversations on it. And then we were introduced to MySpace, and now that is a website that had images and you could provide the data that you needed on there to communicate with one another. And then we had Facebook, who took that to the next level, and so on and so on. So why didn't we think that there was going to be more introduced to us, and language models which is developed to speak for us, especially for businesses? So let's look at even the core process of LLMs, which is basically a type of artificial intelligence that works with human languages. We've used Alexa, which is somewhat of, well, it is an artificial intelligence. So it was not just dropped on us; it was systematically eased on us little by little. It can generate text. It can generate understandings, our sentences, and be conversational, which is a bunch of layers basically. You also have to look at, well, here's the question. People are like, well, what are LLMs? LLM stands for large language models. Large refers to both the huge amount of text and it's trained on the large number of internal parameters, often billions, used to represent patterns in language. So, what is an LLM, and what does it do? Well, an LLM can generate text, answer questions, summarize documents, translate languages, and even write code, all from plain language prompts. So you type it in, it comes back to you, or you speak into a microphone. Uh, it does this by predicting the next token, which is the piece of text in sequence, using what is learned and how words and concepts appear together. That's why you always constantly hear, like, train your AI model and how you speak and everything, and how it's developed for your business. If you're a business person, how does this work? How will this increase your business in conversion rates? And that's what I wanted to get into a little bit more in this particular podcast, because people when I explain to them or I express to them that I now have redeveloped my own website platforms to include RAG systems. And before I can say that, I have to explain to them exactly how is that developed. So the best case, I'm doing it now. That way, if someone asks me again, I can just send them this whole podcast. Like simply, it is really funny. So the high level of learning, a LLM, large language model. I'm going to say that so it can stick in your head. Are built deeply for deep learning, um, transforming sequences into paragraphs and things, mechanisms called, self attention, figuring out which word and sequences are most utilized and mostly relevant to allow the model to keep track. I got into, I say, in July and August of this year, I began to wanted to understand the architect of learning how these LLMs think. Literally, how is it layered? How can I utilize it to the next step? The next, so I took a deep dive, and for about 2 months, I studied workflows. Workflows utilizing the LLMs. And then, it opened up a whole nother world of vibe coding and some other things. Not to go off topic. Workflows are basically building an agent from scratch. And what do I mean by that? It means I can think of things that I want to build an agent to do for my business or for myself. With the workflows, I can build it in the sequence that I need for it to think in layers. So, to give you an example, if I build a workflow to automatically sort through my emails, I can. And it was utilizing an LLM, a token based system, where I would input that, give it the agent to tell the agent the prompt that I want this particular workflow to clean out and go through my emails per day. And that's where I got the base to understanding how complex and how simplified LLMs can be utilized for that. So, what are the examples of the LLM? You're using them. You're using systems like ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Meta's LLMs, GitHub, Copilot, chatbots, writing assistant, augmentation tools, and many other AI features embedded in products and services. Those are your LLMs. Well, you'll say, Dutch, as well. I can use ChatGPT for everything. I can help it to utilize or write post or anything, but that's a standalone situation where you're using it and you're not utilizing the power of it when it is connected to layers to create other systems. If you're following what I'm saying, why does it matter? I mean, you have a general purpose a language engine. You can adapt it to many tasks: customer support, content generation, data analysis, and coding help, and more often, specific training. So basically, you're feeding it the tasks that you have done manually, and now you're creating an automation. That's what that workflow will do. So now you are taking a standalone feature that you would go in and ask questions and it would bring you back, and you're taking it and you're taking it on a move. You're making it mobile for whatever you needed to do. Now, it does come with a lot of limitations. Now, the core limitations, and I tell people this all the time, they'll say, well, I went to ChatGPT and it says this, or I went to Claude, or I went to Perplexity, or I went to here. There's so many LLM models out there. You can build a LLM model using LLMs. Yes, I've seen it. So here's the issue: they are powerful, but they have serious technical, ethical, and security limitations. That means they cannot be treated as a perfectly accurate or fully functional transworthy system. It is there's flaws. LLM often hallucinate, confidentially producing texts that are false, fabricated, or unsupported by data, which can mislead you to in high stakes settings like medicine, law, and cybersecurity. They struggle with complex reasoning, long term memory, and very long context. And their knowledge becomes stale because they cannot automatically keep up with the new information once training is finished. What does that mean? Well, it could be biased, it can have issues with fairness, and it can have toxicity. Because LLM learns from internet scale text, that's what I wanted to tell people. It's gathering information from the internet. Its source is from the internet, and we know that there's false information. Now, if we go back and understand, it'll pick up the stereotypes, it'll pick up toxic language, even discriminatory and offensive languages. That's why it's important to train what you're utilizing. So, if you are sitting there and you have this powerful system and you needed to utilize or automate your business or your customer service or what have you, what can you do? I mean, you have this operational and this environment limits that you can't totally rely on. So here's the thing. Let's get up to what's going on. Reducing biases in LLMs and intervening at every stage in data and model training. That's where we are now adapting the alignment after pertaining pre-training many LLMs. We are fine tuning on narrower data sets. Excuse me, I'm just so congested. But further aligning and reinforcing learning from human feedback. So we teach them to follow a message, and that's where we get into RAG systems. So we now had the standalone AI model. We've now shifted into movable parts, like in our websites and doing agents and stuff like that. We've now have done that in the past 3 years. It seems like it's moving quicker and quicker, faster and faster. So how do we utilize this technology with some of the limitations? So that's where Now I've started to build into my websites, and this is new web technology, where if you are a website with heavy text or a lot of information, it would be it would benefit your business to utilize a RAG system model inside of your website, specifically for people who are searching for your products. Let me give you an example. Before, if you go on someone's website or you go on a Home Depot or a Walmart or whatever type of store, e-commerce store, and you were looking for a specific model and you would go and search, and then the search results will show you the actual product, and it'll give you almost in a list form. So that is the traditional RAG system. You've built in data for people to search inside of your website to get what you need. Well, what the RAG system does, which is a system of combining an LLM with a search or retrieval layer, so the model can look up things external data before it answers. This makes the output more accurate, up to date, and specifically grounded in your own documents. So, why is it useful? I mean, it greatly reduces hallucination by forcing the model to base answers on retrieved, inspectable sources rather than just its internal parameters, which we know is going to go all over the place. So, I know everybody is like, okay, what is RAG? It is a retrieval augmented generation. It is an AI technique that enhances large language models, LLMs, by retrieving relevant external documents before generating responses. How does that work? So let's go back to the search, and now you add this layer of RAG onto it, and you are not only get the information about the product, you can ask questions about it to see if it's better situated for you, which will limit returns. It will limit the purpose of having to ask someone or customer service a bunch of information. It's already there on your website. You're able to utilize and do that. And that is systematically what is happening with RAG systems in chunks. So my Arita Robinson website, aritarobinson.com, I put in a RAG system. I have the general text on my website that you can go to the home, about, service, the generic traditional information on it. Excuse me. And you can literally now you can go read it. But with the system that I have on the website, combined with the blogs that I've written, the services, the images that I provided, the RAG system is developed into a voice chatbot. So what happens when you click on that chatbot, it will have a conversation, an accurate conversation sometimes. There's still a small fraction that I have to correct it. The pronunciation of my name sometimes. So I'll go back and ask it questions like, uh, who is something? And it will come back with something, but not necessarily it. So I correct it on the spot. I'm training that particular model while I'm doing a demonstration. What happens is people can come to the website, And they can ask all of the questions that are already written there. And then, as the knowledge base that I've trained into it, I've added additional information. So, if someone is having a conversation, can't find it on the website, the retriever will retrieve the information that I have already. There are times when the RAG system on my website can't ask questions. However, it will now build, and that's in another one of my website. It will hand off the information to somebody live, like myself, or a whole nother database of information about me that I trained the actual system and knowing my booking schedules and stuff like that, emails, contact, how I create things, history, all of those things are now embedded into this small apparatus on my website. That's how RAG systems are utilized. It retrieves the document that you trained it, forcing the LLM to grab factual information about your business. Case in point, I've worked with a number of developers internationally and in the United States. They have documents that have a lot of information. I have developed so many documents, plans, all of that information, even some law firms. So what happens is I create a RAG system retrieval platform for them, for their documentation, for plans that they create. So their investors, and this is a big thing that I get a lot of calls for now, for their investors to go through this RAG system and ask all of the relevant questions while they're reading it. Either I'll build the platform or I embed a link inside of the documents for them to retrieve, to open up into a platform of asking questions back and forth, either in a word and typing format or voice audio generated. That's the biggest thing. I'm not going to go too further in here because my voice is burning at this point. But I just wanted to jump out, excuse me, with this information. Thank you for listening. This is Duchess Robinson, Duchess.pro, 8x10 Designs.